Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the August 1st BOCC meeting. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Must have went to a gavel clap.
All right, again, welcome, everybody. First thing we have on our agenda are our minutes. Gentlemen, do we have any additions or corrections?
I don't know.
I move to approve the proceedings of Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 for the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proceedings of the Board of Commissioners, Montezuma County, July 18th, 2023. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next we have a continuation from 718, planning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Does Kim need to read the public notice again, or?
My understanding is the application has been withdrawn, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so given that the application has been withdrawn, there won't be a public hearing.
Fair enough.
And so
So-
I would just make a record that Ms. Guerreiro and Mr. Moore have withdrawn their application.
Correct. The Moores have withdrawn that application.
Okay, so then I guess I will close this public hearing and we are done.
Yep.
Okay. All right, then we are going on to item number 1, and it's for a discussion of a variance for Mr. Hinton and Mr. O'Brien.
Correct.
I see Mr. O'Brien.
Yep. Mr. O'Brien is here.
Morning.
Not gonna use that one.
One of those are giving you fits.
Yeah. Modern technology.
Try that again.
That better? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Rick's owner, operator, leasee of the Southwest Diesel Repair down in Blue Door subdivision. Can you bring up the map there, Travis?
This was the one that was in Dropbox. Let me check.
Correct.
That's a little bit off.
Yeah, that's a little bit off.
That's kind of catty corner from where we're at.
Yeah, we're not quite operating the shop right there, but his shop accesses off of Road 24.3. The residence part of that lot, they access off of G.2.
G.3.
Or G.3, excuse me. So Kenny Hinton is the owner of the property, and he is looking to sell the whole thing. And so Rick's been negotiating with him to see if they could split that lot so that he could buy that half and keep his shop that he's been operating for 38 years. So the variance request, it's a 3-acre lot, would be to split it in half. On the east side is the shop, and a lean-to storage building. On the west, the 2 purple buildings, one's a single-wide trailer, and the other is, I believe, a double-wide trailer there that Kenny owns. The single-wide in the middle is owned by another guy out of New Mexico that's just renting it there. So I don't know what's going to happen if and when that part sells, but Rick's looking at a variance request to subdivide that to less than a 3-acre minimum per the land use code as the first part of that variance. The next part would be the setbacks for the lean-to storage shed there in the top part of the parcel, and also to the current single-wide that's resides there. The shop is on a common septic with that single wide. They would use the existing line to the west, install a septic tank and a leach field that would not cross property lines. The current septic tank and leach field for that single wide goes to the southwest and would stay on the west half of that, should that be able to be subdivided.
So you're gonna have to add a septic system, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So that it stays on your,
To keep the
Parcel.
shop septic
Gotcha.
separate from the single wide septic.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Travis, if you'll scroll up, there's a couple other maps there that shows, keep going. Keep going, that's just the zoning. Those are the acres. Did you load his map?
So this is a cluster of 1 acre, 3 acre lots,
Yeah.
all within this little Blue Door subdivision?
We'll see.
Lot of 1 acre.
How are those 1 acre lots created?
That was created a couple years ago. It's a industrial PUD. It was a 3 acre lot, and it is now 3 1 acre lots in an industrial PUD just to the south.
Aren't a lot of those served by Cortez Sanitation?
To,
I think
on G2
G2
and to the west,
G2?
they are,
Okay.
but to get through there, you'd have to go through everybody's property to get to the Sand District's line.
Yes.
Everything to the north is all on septic.
Can you go up just a little bit to the zoning map?
So everything on G3 is septic?
Correct. So there's the zoning, it's heavy industrial to the south, light industrial there to the west and to the east. The southwest corner of that little section is G. Willikers, that's commercial. To the north, those are zoned ARES. One's the mosquito control district. There's another business there, so it's a mix, mostly light and heavy industrial or commercial. There's the pawn shop there. It's still zoned ARES, but that's where the county and the city put their communications for fiber optic
Yeah,
on that
the HUD down there.
shared project. So that's the main hub there.
Don, is there any way to accomplish this without a variance? I mean, is it conceivable, could we look at doing a industrial PUD to accomplish the same thing that we're trying to accomplish here?
The one lot's only gonna end up being residential though, isn't it?
Is that
Where the two
one
trailers
lot
are?
just gonna be residential? There's no industrial activity going there?
Right, the west half of that property, I guess we could possibly look at maybe a commercial PUD, since those are both just rentals. And his shop is just a diesel repair shop. He doesn't really store heavy equipment other than what he's working on. It's not like he's got a construction yard. If we do that, we're still gonna
Is that-
have,
that's
then we
the
would
only-
have those parameters within the PUD versus a variance. So yes, that is an option, because on a commercial lot, you can have residential structures.
And certainly, commercial zoning would fit within that realm. I mean,
Is it commercial? Yeah, I guess.
you never
commercial industrial.
wanna overcomplicate things, but at the same, and,
Well, commercial will actually fit his lot more,
exactly.
actually too, because what he does there is not,
Is-
he's doing repair work. He's
Right.
not actually building something where it would be industrial type
Yeah.
construction or
Yeah.
anything. He's doing repair work.
And if, depending on a variance, or if we go the PUD route, that would have to be rezoned either way because it's a commercial operation.
I think it would be much cleaner to look at a commercial PUD there, because then you're not breaking down the 3 acre minimum in the land use code, and you're staying consistent in that way.
By looking at the land, by the map here, the 3 acre minimums broke down pretty bad.
Well, it has been, but it hasn't been broken down by variance, and I think that there is a distinction there.
Is that single wide, is it on a permanent foundation, or is it just,
No, sir, it's not on a permanent foundation. It can be moved.
And that's the one to the west? Or
That's
on-
a
which would
small
be the
single wide,
west
yes,
lot?
towards the east, or the west of the property line, yes.
the one that's right in that little jog?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, this one, yeah,
And the other one's,
a double wide.
Yeah, it's a double wide.
yeah, the bigger purple spot.
And that conceivably could raise an issue too, because if you remove that single wide, then all of a sudden, that other lot doesn't really fit within the commercial PUD.
It would just depend on
I mean, if
the
it-
current owner's renting it, a future owner. I have no idea what,
Yep.
It's
And-
rental property now, so it's commercial.
So they're both being rented
Yes.
correct,
on the west side?
Yes.
right.
But the lack of permanence with that might lend itself towards a variance here. You see what I'm saying? I mean, if this single wide moves off, then all of a sudden, you've got one residential structure, and then all of a sudden, you're sort of outside the purview of a commercial use now. And so, I mean, that almost leads me more towards thinking that a variance may be more appropriate here. It's tricky.
Here again.
Other than, I mean, the west, what would be the west lot of the PUD, you can live on commercial zoned property.
Yep.
We always have the debate of if a rental's commercial or if a rental's residential, so we can go one direction this time. I don't know. It fits within the area. I don't know which way works better. I know you don't like variances, and we don't either, but you're looking at a 40-year business you don't want to see go away, especially if you've got,
Something to fix, needs fixing.
well, you've got a major truck stop that's gonna be
Yeah.
3 blocks away. You really don't want to have to go somewhere else to where you're not getting the business right on hand.
You know, the reality is legally, I think you can do it either way. I think you can do this with a commercial PUD, or I think you can do this with a variance. I think the advantage of doing with a commercial PUD is then you're not doing a variance, and we know that variances can break down the land use code. You issue a variance here, then all of a sudden, you're having to issue a variance in another circumstance. Variances aren't a really great thing from a legal standpoint. The commercial PUD seemingly would fit here. It certainly fits here as the property sits now very well, and the uses that are currently being used. So,
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Well, personally, I think the commercial,
PUD.
because the zoning and everything would fit. And I think that's what it's being used for. To me, that's the way we should go, is just go with the commercial. Because that's what it's being done there right now. I mean, in my mind, that's,
It is,
both
it's a
sides
repair
of it.
shop, it's
it fits.
Been there
Because
for-
one's a rental and the
Been
other's
there a long time.
30,
Yeah.
40 years, we all know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's involved for these folks if we go commercial PUD?
Either way, they're gonna have to go through the process to either subdivide or get approved for a PUD, so they would go to P and Z, and then if that's recommended for approval, back to you guys. And we could also, would have to talk with Kenny. If we do the commercial PUD, we could probably, based on that west, what would be the west lot, maybe open that up to a third residence going on there, or a third rental as part of the commercial PUD, so it's not really just a residential lot, it's basically for rental. We'd have to see if that's something Kenny would, I mean, that's not gonna hurt the sale of the property. He's fixing to sell it no matter what, so.
You think that's
But
something
within a
Kenny's willing to
PUD,
do?
we could have those contingencies just to open
Right,
that
it
up.
doesn't mean he has to do anything with it, it just means that
Correct.
the availability is there for him.
Right.
He doesn't have to do anything with it. I got it. And what is that time sensitive, Rick? I mean, what are you,
It's not too time sensitive. The sooner I can get it done, the better it would be, you know, for me and for him.
sure. So he would be able to get on the P and Z this month then?
It would be September, because there's a
Oh, September.
15-day minimum, and we're already under 10 days for August.
For the notifications.
Can we send this back to P and Z with the recommendation it be,
That's how we have to send
Yeah,
it back
I
to
mean-
P and Z, is
Mhm.
for a,
and can we recommend they get on this month? I mean. they-
Well,
We have to do legal
there's no
public notice.
notification.
Okay.
There's no notification time.
Well, and we really wouldn't be sending it back with anything, because ultimately
It's
what it
brand
would be,
new.
it would be a new application
that's
for a
true.
commercial PUD. And so that's what would come before P and Z, and then it would come up for you guys, to you guys for approval.
Correct.
Long-term, though, that would be your best avenue.
And I agree with that, because everything else has been done that way, and there are a lot of 1 acre lots right there, so that would,
Well, that blends right in with the
Compliant.
industrial PUD, so it's not a stretch by any means.
It's gonna help both those properties too, from a flexibility standpoint, a value standpoint, everything. I think it'll just be better for both those property owners.
That'd be
Yeah.
best if you could do
Yeah.
it that way. I realize it's gonna take a little more time, but it'd be better for the property owners in the long run.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
okay, so,
I mean,
sounds like then that's what we've
Yeah.
decided. Do we need an actual,
Do we need motion?
or just guidance?
At this point, we would deny the application for the variance. Or just let it die, you don't even need to deny it. I mean, there's just no motion to move the variance forward, so the variance doesn't go.
Right, so I think it's just guidance. I think the guidance
Yeah.
then would be, Rick, is just to take it back through that PUD process to make it so that it is split, so that it's consistent with the rest of it, and then we just go from there. So it is cleaner.
Is that something you want to do rather than us issue a denial?
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
We would prefer that as well.
Yeah, I think it's guidance, and we can leave it at that.
It's the same time frame that he would been under, to subdivide with a variance, so it's not
yeah.
his course.
Okay. All right,
Cool, fair enough.
very good. We'll see you in a couple months.
Okay, I'll be here.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
We'll get you.
Let me know, just give me a call.
Okay.
Come up and get everything. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Rick.
Have a good day.
Enjoy your day today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take care.
Nice.
All right, next up, we have signature on
Right,
an
item number
exemption.
2 is the legal description had a typo in it on the exemption resolution that was approved previously, so we have the corrected document. And then item number 3, the Mylar is not ready to be signed. It's hasn't been signed by the applicant, so we can scratch number 3 and just sign off on
Just
the
sign on-
corrected exemption.
Sign number 2.
Yep.
I can use, I don't need a special.
You don't need a special candidate.
Spelled my name wrong.
S-A-Y?
It happens a lot.
It's just go to the discussion.
Okay. Anything else?
Not anything pertinent right now. I think we're
Okay.
good for today.
Very good then.
Every day's a new day.
All right.
Every application's a new scenario, so.
Well, then we will move right along.
All right, thank you,
All right,
guys.
Thank you, guys. All right, next up is our public comment. The Board of County Commissioners welcomes you to this meeting. Person speaking during public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, or depending on the number of people wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments. Comments to individual supervisors or staff are not permitted, and participants may not yield their time to other. And with that, the public comment session of this meeting is open. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll close the public comment and we'll go right straight into our department head reports. First off, we have Road and Bridge, Mr. Engelhardt. Good morning.
How you doing, Rob?
Good, how are you?
All right.
Okay, first off, I guess, is the calendar for August. Right now, we're doing a lot of general maintenance repairs, which involves culverts and edging and weeds and trees and different odds and ends. So you just kind of ball it all up and call it general maintenance for the next 30 days while we're getting into our chip seal plan in September. We are graveling roads. We just completed Road N out towards Goodman Point. There was about 2 miles out there that we pulled shoulders on last fall and got it all gravelled. And then we'll be headed to Pleasant View to do Road 13, and then W and V6, and then we want to do some gravel work on Road X out at Yellow Jacket. So that's kind of the lead items for the gravel hauls through August, September, and into the fall. Blade patching, we're going to start that next week. We're going to go do the Dolores Norwood Road, be the first item on our agenda. We did get some pricing from doing that, and we were able to get about 642 ton purchased and get it up there for the Forest Service with the funding that they're providing. So a little increase from what we were hoping for. We did pretty good on our pricing, so we'll get that started next week. So we'll be working on all that, and then roll right into what we want to do prior to doing chip seal, do some leveling, and then be ready for chip seal. And then mowing. Got tractors in Mancos and Dolores. They're about done this week, and then we'll head for Roundup, and then wrap back around into Cortez and do the mowing where we don't get as much weed control on our shoulders and reach out there a little further. So that's generally what we're doing in August now. So we're still kind of holding off on some of our asphalt type work due to the temperatures. They are still high, but it's starting to come down now with some afternoon clouds and some rain a little bit. Hopefully it'll cool things off, and that helps us a lot. So that's what we'll be doing in August. Any questions?
No?
Okay, Bridge is doing good. I'll update you a little bit on that. They got the abutments poured last week. and got their cylinder brakes. I believe they passed. I haven't heard this morning on the official set, but they should have got enough strength to go ahead and start their backfilling around it so they can set girders. The girders are due in on the 2nd of, well, actually tomorrow, and they'll had a problem with the crane schedule, so they're going to slide now till Friday to set the girders, but they will be delivered tomorrow, and they'll set those girders on Friday, which puts us at 30 days ahead of schedule for that activity. So we're moving along very well with the bridge, and I think if we don't have any unforeseen problems, they'll finish this bridge sometime, hopefully in, mid-September. So that's a big jump ahead of what we were planning, so it's a good deal. So the Dolores Norwood Road, like I said, we'll start that next week, and we were waiting for some cooler temperatures, but we will go up with brooms and we'll sweep off that worst part. We'll try to start basically at Little Bean Canyon there and wrap all the way over the top to House Creek, and then we'll save enough asphalt to go all the way to the county line, out of the spot here and a spot there to fix that. But I think that 26 loads will about do everything we need to do.
That's
so.
the worst
Yeah.
part, from Bean Canyon to Cattle Guard 3, right?
Right, exactly.
Number
Yep.
3?
And there's some oddball places there we can fix with some cold patch with, pickup. But we'll save the most of the bulk for the worst of it, yeah, and try to get that fixed up. So. Painters are here this week. They painted Road M yesterday from 145 over to 29. They're doing 29 up to 184 today. That'll be yellow in the middle and white on the edges.
We're
Then
gonna
they
get
go
a
down
straight
to-
line on 29
I'm
this year.
not gonna be able- yeah. No comment. We do the best we can. It's better than last year's Mr. Wiggles, so.
Yeah.
So, we're working on that. They did get started yesterday. They had a malfunction on their marking machine on the truck, and they got over about 1.5 to 3 foot to one side, so they're gonna grind that off tomorrow and redo that for about a quarter of a mile. But they did get back on center, and it looks real good now, so, yeah, that's why I didn't wanna say much, the Wiggles, so. Anyway, they're working on it. And then they go to Hay Camp, get that done, then down to the airport this afternoon, and we'll get that all painted up. We still have some shouldering to do around the new guardrails down there, clean that up a little bit, and then we're done. All that's all put together. There's a little taper at the end. They didn't taper real well. We'll fix that today and get that at the end of the asphalt down there at the airport parking lot where you come off the asphalt onto the gravel. We'll get that all cleaned up today. We did have to fix Road P yesterday over there at where the washout was at. It started coming apart, so we fixed it. But it's on the schedule to be chip sealed in September. So in the next, after August, we'll get that all put back together, be done with it too. So quit worrying about that one. I did get with Stoner Engineering yesterday. A couple of years ago, well, it's been several years ago, he designed a footing and a head wall for me to put a new bridge on Spruce Creek. We chose a culvert at the time, and then this year with the heavy snow, we lost that road for a while. So we're taking his design abutment and remodifying it to fit those culverts that we talked about earlier this year. I think you were part of that, Gerald. That structure was going to be used down Camel Canyon.
Mhm.
He took a look at that, and he thinks that'll work real well. So we're redesigning that head wall and a spread footing to make that work, and we'll get that put in this fall. Hopefully get that design done in the next couple of weeks, and then get started on a contract for a contractor to come in and pour concrete for us. And then this fall, while the creek is dry, we'll get that built and have it done. That'll give you a 6 foot tall, 20 foot wide culvert, basically, is what it is. So
And that was on 30,
it's on Road 36,
36?
Spruce Creek, yeah.
36 is
So-
around from.
So we're moving on that. We want to get that done this fall before we go through another season like we had to last year where we just couldn't control that much water. Now, we never seen that before, and we may not see it again, but we at least have something that'll stand up to the task this time, so that's going good. We're happy to get to use that culvert that was purchased years ago. We never lost any of the parts. They're all right there, and we can make it all work, so take
Yeah, that
advantage
was-
of that.
several years ago, right? You said in
Yeah, it was back like in
Long time.
2006 or
12 years ago?
2008 or something
Yeah,
like that.
what was it, for Rock Creek or something?
Yeah,
Down
we were
Montezuma?
gonna put it in Rock Creek, but it was gonna put a hump on the road.
That, and they didn't have a foundation. They thought there was bedrock where it wasn't bedrock, and they couldn't anchor it or anything, so they just went and put
Yeah.
culverts in and set everything aside, and after all these years, we're gonna be able to put that to work. And I think it was a pretty expensive acquisition, buying all that, so they did a good job over all the years of not losing all the parts and pieces, and we're gonna put it to work now.
Good.
Yeah, so that's on the list to get done this fall. Other than that, it's just business as usual out there. We're hauling riprap in from Mesa Verde today, we got agreement with Elam, asked for some help. We said we can take all the riprap we can get, so they're cleaning up their project. We got 2 trucks on it, and they've got 2 outside trucks for hauling riprap to Dolores and Cortez, about 2 days worth of hauling. That'll resupply our riprap stockpiles, so that's a good deal for us on that, so. That's it.
Question?
No,
I did check your road on Highland Terrace, and I can visit with you, but I didn't see anything wrong, so I don't know. I need to visit with you about that. Call me when you get done today.
Yeah, I didn't go up and look, but
Yeah.
I got a couple of calls.
There's some different areas up there that are red road too, so maybe they're red roads, I don't know, so,
Could be.
yeah. So just call me when you get time, and we'll visit about that.
Okay.
That,
Thank you for getting M done.
pardon me?
Thank you for getting M done.
Okay. I know, it's kind of offline, I wish I had done
Well-
it now, but, you know, what am I supposed to do? We did our best, we'll fix it, so.
They'll fix it.
Yes, they'll get it.
It's okay.
So, but it does look better, it does divide the road now, so, yeah, so.
Are you about done up on V?
V and Lewis,
Yeah.
we still have to, we got the earthwork done. It did make a big difference digging all that out, rebuilding all that with some better gravels and some fabric. And then it's all put back together. We got to balance it, blade it, and then we'll chip seal it in September, the whole road from 491 out to 19. So that'll all be put back together and chip seal.
All right.
And we do have to do a little bit of blade patching to fill some low spots there. That was the first road that we chip sealed when I started here in 2014. So that road has lasted 9 years.
Yeah.
So we're very pleased that we got the life out of what we did without having to spend a lot of money on it. So this year we're putting some money into it and get back to something normal, so it's good.
Okay,
Good? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
thanks, Rob. All right, next up, we have our noxious weed lady, Miss Anderson. Good morning.
Okay, we'll go through this presentation and then I'll give an update on our department. But this presentation is pretty much based on the big picture of noxious weeds in Montezuma County. Okay, what weed is that, Travis?
It's a beautiful purple flower.
Almost looks like a sunflower.
Cows really
I
like
need a
that.
cattle prod.
Canada
No,
thistle?
that's not
No.
Canadian.
Musk.
Yes. A plus.
It's a,
Thank
it's
you.
a thistle. It's
Okay.
a thistle.
I
It's
guess you
bad.
guys are getting closer, you know,
bad.
you're in the same family. Okay, next. Man, I should have printed that out, it's hard to read. Okay. Oh, thank you. Let's see. Getting old, can't see. Okay, when you think of zebra mussels, I hope you do think about noxious weeds too. Zebra mussels get a lot of attention, as they should. We're spending millions of dollars to prevent them from coming in here, which is great, but also take into consideration the other non-native invasive species that we're dealing with in Colorado. They tend to be overlooked, and I'm not quite sure why. But we do have a significant problem, just as bad as, if not worse than if zebra mussels were here. I didn't print out the handout, so sorry. We've been mapping a bunch since from 2016 to 2022, dissolving any overlapping polygons. We're left with about 46,000 acres of noxious weeds in Montezuma County that have been mapped. If you tack on this year, we have an additional 870 acres. So this means there's 870 acres of new infestations within the last year. It's not really surprising with the moisture, but it's not great
So is
news
that
either.
really because the moisture, we had such a
Yes.
great water year, or is it
Yeah,
because
the
of lack
seed-
of care? I mean,
Both.
what is it?
Both. No, but this year it's because the seed bank is so extensive. It's just been waiting for moisture to germinate it. But lack of care, overgrazing is a huge issue. And that's part of why we are in such a horrible situation with noxious weeds, coupled with the drought. You put cattle on there for too long, the grass can't bounce back, and then the weeds come in. So it's a problem. That's something CSU Extension has been working hard on, trying to solve that. So next. Okay, so with an active program, we have a very active program compared to every other county. We saw a 2% increase this year in noxious weeds. If you look at all the data for previous years, we have reduced populations by over 12,000 acres, which is good. So we have been seeing an average reduction in 3.4% of the weeds each year. Let's see. So I guess we can, from the data we have right now, we can see with management on a good year, we can see a 3% decrease. With management on a bad year, we could see a 2% increase. With no management, if we didn't have a program, most likely we would see an average of 6% increase. Okay, and that's what all the studies say, but I'd rather not do anything so I can study to see what that percentage increase is, if you know what I mean. Okay, so economic loss, if you average out the calculations that I've done, we're losing about $160 per acre that's infested with noxious weeds. Next. So this is kind of a future estimate of if we continue the course at the rate we're doing right now, if we're reducing 3.4% of the noxious weed populations each year, that's in the yellow, and that's the economic loss each year that Montezuma County will probably see because of those weeds. So if we continue, you know, by 2060, maybe we can reduce it to 7,000 acres, and we're only losing $1 million a year. If we do nothing, if we lose the program, obviously those numbers are going to increase significantly. Just food for thought. So Russian olives and salt cedars, this is a little more depressing. So we have 7,800 acres of these species. About 30% of them overlap each other, so they're existing in the same area. We've managed 540 acres at the time that I did this. So we have about 7,200 acres of Russian olives and salt cedars. Mind you, there are many landowners that are removing these. Clint Schur up on AA removed a bunch of Russian olives. So I haven't mapped the areas that have been removed. How I track these populations is using satellite imagery. So once we get more current satellite imagery, I can map them. The satellite imagery that we got last year or recently was done in the fall, so I can't use that data because I can't see the foliage. So I'm really waiting for updated imagery. That way I can actually see where it's spreading in new areas or where people have managed it. But for what we know, the management we've done, we have 7,200 acres of Russian olives from the 2019 data that I did satellite imagery mapping on. So at the rate we're going with my two-person crew, we average 120 acres per year. How many years is it going to take to complete this if we don't have any increase in populations? It's going to take us about 60 years. So using satellite imagery, I went on the historical images. You know, I've showed you these pictures. I don't think I have them on here. Do I? Do I have the before and afters? Go down a little more. No, I just have statistics for you. Okay, go back up. Lucky you. So they started coming into our area in the 1980s. 1990s, you could see a small increase. 2000s, they really blew up because that's when McPhee was really putting out water for irrigation. Irrigation systems were getting established across the county. So when irrigation ramped up, these populations started spreading. So this is kind of, this is the population growth model that I was able to determine by looking at the old satellite imagery images with the 2019 images. So we were seeing about a 12% increase each year in these populations. We have how many irrigated acres in Montezuma County, Gerald? Do you know?
In the whole county?
Yeah.
50-some thousand.
And then how many acres of riparian wetland areas we have along the waterways? A lot. So that's the suitable habitat that we have for these phreatophytes. I don't know if you drive around and pay attention. I do, and it's horrifying. you'll go past this irrigated field and all of a sudden you'll see all these sprouts coming up. And it's like, holy shit, if they don't do anything, 5-10 years, it's going to become a jungle. They're going to get 15 feet tall. So these guys are spreading. They're spreading fast. My crew is not able to keep up with even the spread rate, most likely. And I won't know that definitively until we get new imagery statistics. And so I did a presentation for Senator Simpson and then the Water Legislative Committee last Friday in Alamosa. So this is kind of the depressing news that I gave them, and hopefully they kind of digested some of it. Next. Okay, so how much water is Montezuma County losing each year? We're losing about 40,000 acre feet of water in Montezuma County because of the direct consumption of water these guys are doing. What is the solvability of this? Like how much salvage? Okay, you guys know what I mean. I can't talk today. How much water can we take back and actually use it? Well, you're never gonna find the answer, because what vegetation is coming back into these areas? How much water are they consuming? How much water is in the soil? Is it saturated? Is it going to absorb more of the water and keep the water in the soil, which is good? So pretty much the question is, how much is going to go back down the river that we can use for irrigation? We really don't know. There's different studies. Well, honestly, there's no studies that have even tried to estimate it. They talk about all the variables that go into it, and that it's pretty impossible to give an answer. But let's just say that we can take back 30% of what water is being consumed by these species. Do I have that next? Oh, and I skipped that. I'll have to bring that slide to you. I gave that slide to them. One water share is 4 acre feet. If you take that 40,000 acre feet of water and get 30% out of that, and then you divide it by 4 acre feet, that's how many water shares we could potentially have created by saving this water from being consumed. I don't have a calculator. Do you still have Shaq's calculator?
No,
Oh,
I don't have it.
He
okay.
took that with him.
Dang it. I don't remember, but
So
it is
it
interesting.
mostly the adjudicated water that's creating all of these waterways where all of this is going? Because, I mean, where's the focus need to be? Is it all on the adjudicated pathways, or is it through like MVI systems? I mean,
At this point,
where
it's
is it?
everywhere, and the birds are spreading it. I think the birds are spreading it a lot. You drive along the road, look down from the power lines, that's where they're sitting, and there's rows of trees. So yeah, it's going through the irrigation system. There was a big project at N.M.P. Reservoir many years ago to remove all the salt cedars and Russian olives around that reservoir. There was a significant amount. So they definitely helped the head source of that water. We need to go back and do more sprout treatments. But obviously you do ideally want to start at the headwaters and work your way down. Since we are dealing with private properties, it's volunteer only. So whoever wants and has the money to hire us to do their pharophytes, we'll go do there. We're prioritizing just whoever, wants to utilize our program. Does that make sense? So starting at near Gwinnett, McPhee, working your way down is obviously the best course of action, but we just don't have that ability because of the private landowners. It makes it challenging. We are trying to focus on Hartman Draw and McElmo Creek to try to get big sections done and start expanding from there. And then you have the RCPP, the NRCS. We have that RCPP agreement through the Farm Bill. So if your land is designated as ag, they can apply for this RCPP funding. And they have a prioritization schedule on which properties they select. And it's mainly, along the major waterways, and then it has to be over so many acres. So we're doing the best we can, but really it's impossible.
I have a question for you or Gerald. If we put, like MBI, if they piped all of their canals, what kind
That would help.
effect would it?
It would help a
really
lot. But then it's going to kill people's cottonwoods that they like. That's a big complaint that I've been hearing from going to the pipeline, is that they are losing that water that used to go
Yeah,
there.
but just to contain and not lose the leakage or evaporation, I mean, that's a huge
And I don't know why they
conservation of all the
put
water,
Lake
too.
Powell in like a 120-degree area. How much water evaporates from there? It's just insane.
Call the BOR.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah, but the problem is, where do you find a place where you can build that size of reservoir?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's,
The capacity of that thing is huge, and we don't have any place in Colorado to build that.
start digging. I don't know.
It's not,
The
all
two
of our,
that-
all of our,
there's The two that were natural for those kind of dams are already built.
Yeah,
we
but
just-
that's my answer to the pipelines. He can,
But, yeah, and you're right, you know, it will dry up where the cottonwoods are all growing along there, but they're also sucking water.
they're also water
They're taking
suckers.
water.
yeah,
Maybe not as much as these, but it's debatable.
Yeah.
As big as they are,
yeah,
so they're still consuming water, and people, if they wanna keep them alive, they can irrigate 'em.
yeah.
They
I
can
mean,
do
it would
water.
solve, going to pipelines, it would solve a lot of issues with noxious weeds moving down the waterways.
Sure.
It really would.
It'd help a bunch. We're working on it,
Good job.
but
Keep it up.
takes a lot of money.
Yeah, everything costs money. Okay, so big picture Colorado. These are quarter quad maps. They're not accurate. This was done 2013. They were estimating. So the CDA really requires on the counties to report this data. A lot of our counties don't have programs, so I don't know exactly. Well, I know the data is not accurate. Some of the counties just have the BOCC run their weed programs, so they ask the BOCC, well, what's your estimated populations? And that's how they get these quarter quads. They're just kind of estimating. So from the quarter quads in 2013, they were estimating 64,000 acres of Russian olives. Salt cedars, they were estimating 29,000 acres. Okay, and now on the new system, it's called N.M.P.s. N.M.P.s, I don't really like. It's all point data. Anybody can put their data in here. And so if many people are reporting the same populations, it's just overlapping each other and they're not dissolving that data. So we're getting inaccurate data. Also, this is requiring GIS mapping, which a lot of counties don't have. Quarter quad, at least you could just sit on a computer, click an area and say, I think we have 100 acres over there. This has to be actually GIS shape files with equipment. So through N.M.P.s, they were estimating 94,000 acres of this Russian olives. Of course, Russian olives. Salt cedars, the estimate is 7,000 acres, which, I mean, our county is, I think, 5,800 acres of salt cedar, so I highly doubt there's only 2,000 acres in the whole Colorado. So it's extremely inaccurate. Next. These are just kind of what I just told you the numbers are. We really don't know how many acres of noxious weed species we have in Colorado. We don't know how many Russian olives, salt cedars, thistles, because nobody's mapping, nobody has programs, and then the state program that they're using really isn't accurate either on how they're doing that. Next. This is part of the handout that I should have brought, but I've just been busy. So I know you guys can't really see this in the audience, but the yellow columns I have with the reservation, without the reservation, because this is the first year that I've mapped down there. So it's hard to use that data, comparing it to my old data that I don't have data for the reservation for. And then on the right column, it tells you what the Colorado State is reporting through N.M.P.s of those populations. These populations are totaling up to 655,000 acres, and I think that's completely underestimated because nobody is accurately mapping, and just based off some of those and our populations, it just doesn't make sense. And they also go by infested acres, and you probably don't care about this. There's gross acres and there's infested acres. So here I map by gross acres. If there's 20 acres with noxious weeds, I map the whole 20 acres. What the state does is they use infested acres, which means 1 acre of land has 100% noxious weeds. So they're shrinking the acreage to make it 100% noxious weeds, which really doesn't make sense because we can't see where the actual populations are. And how they're shrinking it to get 100%, you'd have to have correct densities with the gross acres. It just gets very complex. But anyways, next. Okay, so hundreds of studies have been conducted, 1980s, 2000s, literally like every single species. They studied what's the yield reduction of this species in a certain crop, how are the impacts, on the economics, what are the impacts for wildlife, and then all these results point to eradicating noxious weeds because they're all very damaging. Then the Colorado Noxious Weed Act was signed into law in 1990s. Personally, I don't see anything that has really progressed since the 2000s. We did have the ERA stimulus package, which gave counties a couple million of dollars to do inventory and treatments on fuel-treated areas within the Forest Service. That was in 2010, which is great, but there was no follow-up on that. So we haven't been back to those sites since they were done in 2010 to 2012. Scientists and researchers did their part. They said something needed to be done, so an act was created, but no funding was attached to that act. So really, nothing could uniformly be done. Now here we still are, 33 years later with no accurate data for Colorado, no funding, no collaboration with Colorado and between other states. But we know the populations are increasing. By now, if the act was doing its job, we would at least have one of the A-list species eradicated. But all we're seeing is every single population of the noxious weeds they've designated is just increasing. So obviously the act is not working. Next. So what do we do? The advisory board and I are kind of working on a letter to send to kind of higher ups because I've been preaching this to the CDA for a long time. Why is myrtle spurge on our A list when it's not even listed in New Mexico, so they're selling it in Farmington and bringing it back here? Like, we're just not getting anywhere. Like, the whole system is flawed and it needs to be restructured. I've been harping about mapping. We need to figure out trends. We need to see what we're dealing with, but nothing is ever done. If we're gonna make a difference, we need to increase our capacity. I need to increase my workforce for the Phreatophyte project. I need more people to help me do enforcement, but at the same time, Colorado, all the counties need to step up too. If I'm working my tail off here, but the weeds are constantly flowing into Montezuma County through vehicles, we're not achieving anything. Obviously, it's good to continue to work hard and strive to keep these populations down, but in the long run, everything is just going to go up from management. The populations, if we keep having bad years, it's going to go up regardless of what I do. We just need to, the big picture is something needs to be done. We have the best weed program in Colorado, I will tell you that. We have our numbers and we understand what's going on. And we will reduce the populations eventually, but just something else needs to happen. So that's depressing. I want $500,000 per year from Montezuma County for the next 10 years so I can actually make a difference.
So your conversation with Mr. Simpson, how did that turn about? Because here again, and we've had this conversation with him. The state enacts all of these acts and then they don't fund anything.
Yep.
Well, and it's a problem because they don't see the problem. It's the worker bees on the ground that see the issues. The farmers see the issues, but no one's really pushing it up there except for me. And I will continue to push it up there. But I think more public awareness, I'm really not sure. But we'll see what Simpson said. He's going to talk with the legislator committee and see how they're feeling about it. But really, I want to take them on a field trip from Pagosa Springs to Durango and show them. Like, they can look at all these statistics. I've been preaching about facts. You know, noxious weeds are responsible for 18% of the endangered species that are listed. Like, just cold, hard facts. Obviously, they're a problem. They're causing a lot of issues. But it's not getting heard or it's not seen. And there is something called plant blindness. It's actually, you know, research. There's books about it. When people look at a picture, they'll see an animal, but they'll never look at the vegetation. Well, without the vegetation, there won't be an animal. So there really needs to be a shift in how people are taking care of the land and looking at things. So if you guys have solutions, but I mean, it's stressful. It's stressful for me because I really do want to make a difference. But yeah, I would say for you guys too, drive from Durango to Pagosa Springs. It makes you happy about where we are, but it's just like, oh my God, it's really bad. I guess they found an endangered species along 160 by Pagosa Springs. So they're not allowed to treat 10 miles of the highway, and it's solid thistle. So there's your depressing news. Okay, I'm going to give you my my department updates real quick. Sindel just texted me our phone calls. So for June, since I didn't see you guys, we had 517 phone calls for noxious weeds. July, we had 312. For phreatophytes, we're up to 70 acres managed. We're almost done with our CPP projects assigned in 2022. We're just now getting paid for the projects that we've done earlier this year. The gentleman who was in charge of the RCPP passed away, so things have been kind of delayed, and I've talked to Phaedra about that. There's a new round of approved RCPP projects. They're working on their contracts and plans. There's a really large one down McElmo Creek that's like 150 acres needing to be removed. That's going to be significant. We're also looking into renewal of RCPP because this last round of projects that were approved and being processed for plans, that'll use up the rest of their money. We still have 20 properties on our waiting list. We're not doing any advertising at all because we just don't have the capacity to take more people on. But a lot of times when we're working on a property, neighbors will come up to us and ask us to do their property, which is great because we want to do certain areas. We want to do big chunks. But we are putting them on our list to be fair. Whoever called us first will go higher on the list. Cost shares, we've had 129 applications. We've reimbursed $21,683. Through those cost shares, 2,000 acres of weeds have been managed. Within those weeds being managed, 500 were thistle, Canada thistle, 93 musk thistle, 350 Russian knapweed, 80 hoary cress. So those are the main weeds people are taking care of, along with annuals like Russian thistle, kochia, and all that kind of stuff. Our budget is $50,000 for cost share because we got $30,000 through the CDA grant with our $20,000 county budget, so we have $50,000. So hopefully we will be able to reimburse all the applicants coming in this year. Last year we couldn't reimburse probably 100 applicants. Backpack sprayers, we've loaned out about 200 so far. Notifications, we've mapped noxious weeds on 880 private properties. 89 we just mapped. We didn't send notification letters out because we've talked to the landowners in the last year or two. 117 of those, we've had reoccurring issues for multiple years, so if we have time and the capacity next year, we're going to be looking at the phone numbers and trying to make contact with these guys, hopefully do some property visits to get things turned around. And then about 11% of the letters we've sent out, the landowners have contacted us, which is pretty average for previous years. It's about 11 to 13% of those letters will get phone calls. Property visits, I've done 33. I'm starting to divert them to Emily Lockhart because I just don't have time to do them right now. Seminars, we have a seating seminar planned on September 19th. A lot of people are calling for the fall applicator training that I put on. We're gonna still have it. I just haven't had time to put it together and I haven't set a date yet, so I'm working on that. Grants, I'm working on the final report for the Forest Service Disaster Relief Grant so I can get reimbursed $49,000 for the Freatophyte project. The American the Beautiful Challenge that we were awarded last fall or this spring is still not finalized. And then we still have a 3-year grant through the Colorado Water Plan for the Freatophytes. So that's all I got. Depressing, but we're accomplishing a lot, right?
That's not depressing. I mean, it's just
Fact.
facts.
Yeah, facts.
Facts.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of something that,
Was intentionally planted in the first?
Yeah,
Right.
and it can be done. I mean, we can
what
win
can be
this
done
war.
if the funding is there?
Yeah.
The state has to decide that it's critical.
Exactly.
And they have to fund it.
But
So
I'm just
like
saying,
everything
you
else,
go,
they put forth these acts and they don't fund them.
yeah.
Therefore, they're,
But you go to
They're really
Pleasant
not good.
View and you go east of 491, there's a lot of the dryland acreage over there. A lot of it has turned fallow. People think it's impossible to re-get perennials there, but there's some really nice dryland fields out there. So it can be done. Like, you can farm it to get native desirable species and keep the weeds out. So I'm just saying it's possible. It just takes work and time. Like, don't think you have weeds and you can never get rid of them, because that's not
is it
true.
work in time or lack of knowledge? Because there's a generational
There is.
change. I mean,
Are a lot of those
Some-
fields in the CRP program? Do you
I
know?
think they are, and I've been talking to Emily Lockhart, trying to get her to take on that challenge of trying to figure out a solution for those, because that's where a lot of our cheatgrass and stuff is, so it's a fire hazard up there.
I thought
Under the CRP
was
program, aren't they supposed to maintain the
be-
weeds?
But nobody enforces that.
Oh,
They don't have time. I don't think they have the capacity, really. And I think, I mean, I don't know a whole lot, but I think they're required to reseed. But if the seed doesn't take, I don't know if there's any further requirements.
Well, there's so few years where you can actually plant that and
Yeah.
Right.
get a stand
Yeah.
that's thick enough to keep the weeds from invading it.
Yeah,
It's
so how
just-
long are they supposed to keep
doesn't happen.
trying to get something established? I
it's
don't
just-
know.
It's a typical program where we pay people not to do anything, and look what happens.
And it's all designated as ag, so they don't pay any property taxes. But their properties are blowing weeds on everybody else. Just another issue.
this is a question for the assessor, but how is it designated ag when there's no ag being produced on the ground?
We've talked
I
about
mean,
it.
there's no production.
Who's laughing behind me the whole time? Funny looking,
I
I
thought it
know.
had to be productive.
I did too.
Yeah,
be
and I think
classified.
she told me every 3 years they go back and look at it. It's sad, really. It makes me very sad, because there's properties that are like 300 acres with not one plant growing on it, but it's designated as ag because they have animals living on it, but they have to feed them hay because that land can no longer support livestock. It's a sad thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna go cry now.
All right, you can go. There's
Bye.
a big room out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bonnie. See ya. Yeah. Mr. Landfill.
Thanks for coming, Mel. We'll see you next month. All right.
Pretty much.
Bonnie, you might stick around for 30 seconds and see how this is done.
Oh, because I'm too long.
So, didn't see you last month. You guys should have got an email with a report from the state on the landfill inspection, which went well. We had two.
Did.
that week.
Congratulations.
Crew did a good job. Everything looks good. The state's happy, so we're still in good graces with them. Carver Field is a work in progress, a very slow work in progress. We're about halfway across with laying the loose clay. I've got one tractor, one operator, got an employee injured. We're doing compost. We just don't have the manpower or the equipment to speed it up. So the liner's on site. We do have that, so when we do get ready, working with Sembec to come in and put that in as soon as we get the clay laid. We had a week where all of our equipment was down the same week. Both compactors, the V8. It's one of them deals. They got to come back and work on the new compactor again. The water pump that went out, what they fixed is leaking already, so. That's where that's at. Have a meeting with CDPHE, our permitter, one of their engineers, our engineers, Thursday on a different design for cell 5 because we're not going to have the clay for the liner system. See if we can work out something with CDPHE on what we can do without using clay in there.
So are we, where you're pulling that clay right now out of that east end of the property, is that as far east as that goes, or do we have more property to the east or more clay?
You're almost to the edge.
Almost
Just
to
right
the
there,
edge.
just in them trees right there is the fence line.
Gotcha.
So we really can't go any farther east. And what was up on top was a lot of rock. I mean, we can use that for cover soil on the landfill, but as far as clay,
So we're kind of out
we're just kind of out.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's really looking that way. There's a little bit in cell 5 and 6 where we're digging, but it's mostly sandstone in there. You've seen it. It's just an issue we're going to have to deal with, and our consulting firm thinks we can get something by, because we're not the only landfill that has this issue in the state. Other landfills don't have the clay as well, so I think it's just going to be a simple design thing. It's probably going to add substantial cost to the liners, but we've kind of budgeted that in there, so we'll see on that. The June budget's up there. I mean, as far as the landfill goes and what we do down there, it's going fine. We're just incredibly busy. 6 days a week is just, it's nonstop, everybody, all day long. It's doubled on with private citizens coming in there. So,
Is it a result of the voucher program?
you know, we've only had a few come in. I could get with Rachel, but I bet it's been less than 20.
I think it's just people are
Cleaning up? there?
finally cleaning up a few things.
Well, they're spending more time at home.
There's a lot of construction going on. So we have a new company bringing to a Panda Express. He does roll-off truck.
Mhm.
They have 75 roll-offs out. He's coming in 5 or 6 times a day, 6 days a week.
Man.
So,
I think the average person doesn't understand what we deal with or what you deal with down there. I think they just think it's kind of like flushing your toilet. You just flush your toilet and it goes away, right? Well, it's the same thing with the trash. You just throw it into the dumpster and it goes away, but there's a lot that goes with that the average person is uneducated about of what it takes to run the facility.
it takes a lot. It's also very expensive. And the other issue that we deal with a lot is the recycling. You know, I got an email this morning from Karen Cheek about an article in the Washington Post. And that article hit it right on the head. It's not the consumer's problem that's creating this problem. It's the corporations false labeling all these stuff, saying it's recyclable when it's not.
Mm.
You know, they put that triangle on there, and everybody thinks just because it's plastic, it's recyclable. Well, that's not true. And it contaminates everything. That's what happened when we started sending all that stuff to China. It was so contaminated, they rejected it. It got dumped in the ocean. Now they won't even accept it. And that's an issue this country's trying to deal with. And it's hard to educate somebody on what is recyclable when these corporations are false labeling it and telling everybody that it is. That's a big issue we deal with. That and the commodities that are still down. I mean, cardboard's only paying $60 a ton. So that's where it's at on that. Anything else?
Nope.
Nah,
Shred it, compost it.
yeah.
Shred it, compost it. We have 12 rows of compost going. The wood chips have caused an issue with that. They really suck the nitrogen out, so we're having to almost triple the amount of nitrogen we're putting in there to get them to cook properly. But, I mean,
Yeah, they suck nitrogen to deteriorate and
right,
eventually it'll even out, but
it will.
that takes years to get to that point.
We've come up with a plan. We weren't gonna rent a shredder this year, but thanks to Ernie Williams and his son and their tire cleanups with the state, I've got thousands of tires down there, and I've already called to start looking around for a shredder. We're gonna have to shred in late September, October. We're running out of room to put tires. So we're gonna be doing that this fall, and the green waste, we're gonna mix that with the wood chips, which will tremendously help
Speed it
our
up.
composting operation, so. But we've got 12 rows going down there right now, which is the largest we've ever had. Every year
Good.
we grow it, so. That's where we're at.
All right.
All right,
Thank you very much.
okay.
I had one,
Yes, sir.
are we still taking yard waste for free, or are we starting? Okay,
And I guess that's another I'm running out of room to put that stuff until I get it shredded.
okay.
We're full. We are really getting full on green waste. But, you know, that shredder in a week, we'll have that pile gone and be good to go, but.
Yeah,
So other than that, all the tires are coming to us because we're the cheapest in that whole area. He's hauling them all the way down from Montrose. Just so you guys know.
we need to bump our price on tires then.
That's what I told him. The state has also changed the rules on tires. They're not, so we did the deal where we shredded them to 6-inch minus, and they paid us $20 a ton. Well, they've knocked that to 12.
12-inch minus?
No,
$12 a
ton.
ton.
Okay.
Why?
That's a big
I
piece
have
of
no
work.
idea
What's
why.
the,
I was gone when they had that Zoom
like a
meeting.
80% decrease?
Well, they did it on everything. They're not, the tire stores don't have to pay
40%.
as much for tire, charge you as much for tire. They cut that in half as well, and I have no idea why they did this. I missed the meeting, I was gone to Nebraska.
Okay. So you did, you followed Bonnie and you wanted to be depressing and just,
Well, and hopefully it
You know,
will.
this is no way to start the month.
Well, if this month's, I hope this month's better than last month, because all we did was fix stuff last month.
Yeah,
Tractor's been down, 4 times, twice for fuel and a couple times for tires. I ordered a tire this morning, or yesterday morning, $5,300 per tire for that tractor. So,
yeah. All right. I do notice that Mr. Spratling came in with an entourage this morning. Are any of you attorneys that I have to get back out of here real quick? If not, I'm going to go ahead and finish up my agenda with our social services director. All right. Kelly.
she'll give me one.
I love your signature. I looked at it closely on the computer and I was like, is that just a O and an O, or is that an oval and an oval? What
It's
is that?
really sophisticated.
Really sophisticated. I like it.
I use an X with a circle around it, so you see what it.
I would like a stamp.
All right.
Yeah. I would so move, we accept the minutes of the regular session of the Board of Social Services for Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, and also the financials in the amount of $1,527,286.99.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the record of proceedings for the Department of Social Services for the month of June 2023, and also the payables in the amount of $1,527,286.99. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. I know you have something else for us.
I do. We have the core plan, and so this is the core plan. This is due annually from Departments of Social Services. The design of core plan is to keep kids in their homes, reunify kids back to their homes, and to help support children finding permanent homes. Core is unique in that it helps pay for whatever Medicaid doesn't pay for when we think about specialized services, so therapies, problematic sexual behavior treatment, those types of things. And it also allows for counties to create their own services, services that don't exist otherwise. So when I looked back, all of our allocations have come down from the state this year. And as we looked back on our core dollars, one of the things I noticed was that we only spent about 68% of our core allocation last year. The core allocation has increased this year. So we did expand some of our service provisions. So one of our county-only designated is the structured parenting time that you see there. This comes as a reflection of new legislation from the state that is taking supervised visits. It's reformatting the language to family time, and it's taking a really liberal perspective, which means parents get to choose who and how family time happens, where it happens, what it looks like. They have a voice in frequency, and that legislation's also issued some court guidance on when visitation, when you can't just end visitation because a parent continues to use substances, for instance. And so we do have a staff member that provides visitation. So I put that staff member in under what it currently exists at 50% of the 80-20. And then I also wrote in structured parenting time and contracted with the Pinion Project. In the case that a family says, I don't want the department to do it, and sometimes they do, then we can contract directly and use those core funding dollars to help promote that reunification, and visitation is a really key piece to successful reunification with families. And so it's kind of, if we need it, it's there. Over this last year, when families decided they wanted visitation out of the department, we paid for that through our child welfare allocation, and we should pay for it through our core services. So the structured family time is different and is an addition this year. The family engagement specialist is also a county-designed program that I put in there this year. We have moved as an organization to differential response, which means that most referrals, when they come in, if they're not high-risk assessments, what we're doing is we're meeting with families and we're front-loading. So we're not making findings and saying, you have done this thing. Instead, we're going to families and we're saying, what could help your family so we don't come knock on your door again? And then we're linking and connecting families with services and supports on that front end. Most counties across the state are DR counties. We're one of the stragglers that just came on board. We're happy to be there. But with DR, when we have those, every family has to have a family engagement meeting. That means it's facilitated by a neutral facilitator. Families are there. They invite supports that are in their lives, as well as providers in the community. Right now, we have staff who will volunteer to lead those family engagement meetings. It's not their primary position. They don't lead them all, so sometimes families can have more than one family engagement meeting, and so then it's inconsistent. Caseworkers then also, as that neutral facilitator who aren't working with that family, have to call and coordinate on this side while this person, the caseworker, is doing the work. And so what we've done is we've said we want a family engagement specialist, somebody who's committed to training, structuring, and getting those family engagement meetings done, engaging meaningfully with families, producing notes, inviting attendees, making sure we have family supports present, service providers present when it makes sense. And that'll help keep it consistent, not only for caseworkers, but our families who are walking in our door. So I put this position, it'll be a staff position. It's not a new position. We've had some moves within our child welfare unit. Caseloads are really low right now. And as we move forward with DR, differential response, and we're not doing investigations, we're front loading those services, it makes a ton of sense to really look for a family engagement specialist. This position would be half-time family engagement specialist funded through CORE, and the other half-time it would be a family preservation worker, which means they're gonna work with those families that need additional services and supports. That doesn't mean an open court case. It means maybe they have a therapeutic need, like MST, multisystemic therapy, and we can open that case and pay for that through this CORE program. And then the last is we also, I put in for a half-time family prevention caseworker to align with one of our ongoing caseworkers because caseloads are so low, and we're really moving towards a prevention framework, front-loading services before we get to that removal. And that family prevention caseworker would provide in-home case management for families, voluntarily connecting them to those services and supports. So in total, in the year before last, we had 1.5 FTE under CORE. So we're moving it to 2.5 under CORE to spend those $80-20 out of that allocation. So we're increasing it by 1 FTE this year. And then the last component is that 100% CORE funding. And that's really, we've dedicated most of that to actual service provision. So we do have a $40,000 roughly contract for MST, multisystemic therapy. We have an allotment for special economic assistance of $5,000. And so that money goes directly to a family for something that they might need. Potentially, maybe there's an infestation of bed bugs, and the department can help support buying beds and furniture. On the flip side, maybe there's a family who, for whatever reason, can't pay their rent and has been denied from other service providers in the community. But that would be a way for them to maintain their housing and thus maintain their children, that we could use that money in those ways. We've allocated 17% to sexual abuse treatment. This is specific to problematic sexual behavior for children in the community. We've put in 24% for substance abuse treatment. This can mean inpatient or other treatments that aren't covered by Medicaid. It would come out of this line item in our core dollars. We've dedicated 24%, which is roughly $57,000, to mental health services. So this is any mental health service that isn't covered by Medicaid or by private insurance. For instance, equine therapy. We have lots of youth and families who benefit from that. And we have not paid that out of our core dollars. We've paid it out of our child welfare allocation. It should come out of here. That could mean parent-child capacity assessments. We have to outsource those. They are expensive. And we haven't paid those through our core allocation. So that can be lots of things that just aren't covered by Medicaid traditionally. 8% to life skills. So this can be any program that is increasing the life skills within a home. One that comes to mind is Tales of Transformation, which is an equine mentoring program. We have many families that are participating in that to help children that have some higher needs, behavioral health needs. It's not therapy, but it is a life skill, and so that's an example. Any other programs that offer skills that relate to life, like budgeting, cleaning, cooking, could potentially fall into this category. And then the last line there is the 8% for structured parenting time, which would be that outsourced contract. So that's the overview, and this is what I would like to submit from our department to the state for approval.
Question?
No?
The only question I have is because when we start adding FTEs, and I know we're going from 1.5 to 2.5, which is 1 FTE. Will this program, I mean, kind of like the public health departments, when they lose their funding for a program, then does this FTE go away with that program, or is that just automatically said, okay, we have this, now the county's gonna pick it up? Is that, what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a
Because-
really great question, and I didn't make myself clear. So the allocation this year for this is higher than it was last year, and last year we didn't spend it all. We used different funding. We're not adding any FTEs. We are looking at the current FTEs we have. We're looking at current workloads. For instance, historically, we have between 20 and 27 dependency and neglects a year. Right now, we're running at 10, which means our ongoing caseworkers don't have maximum caseloads.
So you're just moving.
So we're just
somebody over,
moving
You're just shifting.
Some
Shift,
staff
okay.
into this funding
Gotcha,
where it
okay.
makes sense.
Okay,
Okay,
gotcha.
good.
That-
Yeah,
that
not
was-
adding
I
staff.
just wanted to make sure I was very clear.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Okay. So then I guess I'll take a formal, that we accept.
Yeah, we accept the core proposal from social services as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the core proposal as presented by Ms. Hargraves, our social services director. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And
Okay.
Commissioner, I think there's a DocuSign or something,
It'll
correct?
have to come later.
I'll
If it's
send it
DocuSign,
today.
it'll come later.
Because the state is waiting on me.
Yep.
And
I
so-
just looked and I don't have it.
I didn't send it yet. I wanted, just in case there was any edits you wanted me to make, but I will go do that right now,
Okay.
so I'll have it.
So send it to myself and Mr. McLaren, and once he looks at it, I will sign it this afternoon.
Perfect.
Okay? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
you too.
All right. Okay, Mr. Spratlin, I'll go ahead and move you up because you were clear at the bottom of this presentation. And you have about another 2 hours to go, so. We will jump around on our agenda a little bit, and we're gonna go down to the new business, which is the Storm Ready presentation. And I will let you all introduce yourselves.
Good morning, my name is Tom Rennick. I'm a forecaster from the National Weather Service office in Grand Junction. So,
Tom?
so if and when you're upset with the weather, yeah, this is the face you can,
We're never upset with the weather.
all right.
We're the forecasters. My name is Erin Walter. I'm a service hydrologist out of the National Weather Service office in Grand Junction.
And if I
Yeah.
get you to pull that real
Closer?
close to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Thanks.
My name is Erin Walter. I'm with the National Weather Service as a service hydrologist in Grand Junction.
And my name is Matthew Alexa. I'm also a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Grand Junction.
That's the guy we get mad at, not the weather. It's the meteorologist.
Yeah.
It's the guys that do all the predicting, right?
Yeah, and you're looking at Matt, so I'm very pleased by that. Thank you very
I'll
much.
do that.
Yeah.
Real quick, sir, you'll have to turn your mic on. Make sure it's, is it on?
The green light is on, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Maybe.
You just have to get it close.
Get it right there.
And it's
Yeah.
not so much, we can hear you in here, but as we're recording live and on television, that the people out there can't hear you.
Fair enough, okay. So the reason we're here today is because Montezuma County is now officially storm ready. So you're probably saying, well, what does that mean?
We've
Well,
been ready for a storm for quite a while now.
Understood, yeah. You got Mr.
just-
Disaster at the end, so I hear too.
Yeah,
So
I just want to know if it's a storm or a disaster.
Yeah.
That's how I want to know.
not really sure, yeah.
You
So
brought the disaster guy with you.
So the Storm Ready program actually started back in 1999. It was called Stormwise. And it started in Oklahoma because the Tulsa WFO office actually And as you may or may not know, every year they get at least a minimum of one tornado, usually much many more tornadoes. And back in the day, the National Weather Service, we would issue a severe thunderstorm watch, a tornado warning, flood warning, winter storm warning. We'd throw the information out there, and that's it. We're done, our end. So how the public received it, how commissioners receive it, how emergency managers, that's not our concern. Here's the info, deal with it. The folks at Tulsa thought, that's not a really good way of doing business. How can we leverage the community so they're on board with what happens? Because, back in the day, and it still happens now, say you've got an event and you get a thunderstorm to come, the Weather Service might have known about it or the chance of it happening, but if we don't tell you, whoever, the organizers, well, how did we provide you any support? You kind of didn't. So these individuals in Oklahoma at that office said, who can we leverage to really get us working together? So they looked around, and then they decided, well, we can't really talk to the fire guys, because if something's going on, they're going to be busy. The cops, they're going to be busy too. Emergency managers, let's see if we can leverage them. And they did. Tulsa did. They were the first office. It was called Stormways. It grew from there. It's kind of like a little bit of a cancer. It sort of went from Oklahoma, and then it's expanded across the whole, United States. And it's now sanctioned by headquarters in D.C., National Weather Service. So it's kind of a big deal. So I'm the storm ready guy for Grand Junction, and we've gotten many counties, and now we've just gotten Montezuma County. So how do we become storm ready? Well, Mr. Disaster at the end and I have.
Well,
I'm happy now.
Yeah. So we have to meet this very long and actually involved checklist to make sure that if we issue something, how does Jim receive that information? Can he receive that information? If he has questions, does he know what to do? Does he have a plan written up? How does he
He's got a plan for everything.
He's got a plan for everything. Yeah, I'm getting that, yeah. Also, how is he going to check to see whether, weather's coming? How does he know what we're thinking? And in fact, even just this morning, the Weather Service today has a new system of talking to emergency managers and other partners online, and it starts today as of 30 minutes ago. And I couldn't believe it. I was just right now, I was sitting right here, and here's Jim with an email, or no, it was an actual text from the system saying, hey, we're going live. I was like, dude, Mr. Disaster's on board. He's on point, right?
Just a raise, that's all.
just looking for a disaster.
Well, we'll put a couple of pieces of cardboard under the legs of that chair, and you can raise all you want.
Well, I'm gonna, I fixed 2 problems today. I've already figured it out. We're gonna burn the county, get rid of the weeds. You're done. And then I'm gonna burn those tires for a couple years, and we're done. It's that simple.
See, you're calling him Mr. Disaster. Sounds like maybe Mr. Solution?
Yeah, you've heard of Dr. Demento? This is Dr. Disaster.
There you go, right? Yeah. So anyway, back to the, that storm ready. So we went through the process, and Jim, flying colors. And we got approval from our Central Region headquarters, which is based out of Kansas City, and up from National Weather Service headquarters in Washington, D.C. So Montezuma County is, storm ready. And it's a big deal. A really good example is an example I was working, this was a couple of years ago, and we'd reached out to it was a jazz festival in Aspen. Aspen, oh, there's lots of people. About 10,000 people that were going. And I knew, that there was a chance for some thunderstorms to roll through later on in the evening when this was going on. So Jim Pringle, who you may or may not know back in the day, he called the emergency manager, said, hey, we have storms possibly coming through. Do you want us to let you know if things are happening? No, we'll be fine. Okay. So right around 7 o'clock that evening, again, I was working, and there's just storms just rolling right over. I said, man, they're getting slammed, but don't need support. What happens? 10:30, phone rings. Oh my God, da-da-da-da-da, I wish we'd known. It's sort of like, well, we gave you the option. Anyway, having said that, now that Montezuma County is storm ready, and you've got Mr. Solution, Mr. Disaster, whatever you want to call him, Mr. Spratland down there, when weather is or could be an issue, you guys are in good hands. And case in point, and also I'm going to kind of toot the horn of our hydrologist here. So, we had an unprecedented snowpack, right, over the winter. And obviously flooding, as you're all aware. And so Erin here became the hydrologist. When did that happen?
March.
March.
End of March.
Yeah. So she had to hit that ground running, like, oh my God, what are we doing? And the first person to call, and she's been in contact with almost all the emergency managers. The first one to call was Jim. And as far as it's exactly what the Storm Ready program is all about. He knows who to call, he knows how to get information to provide for your community and your county, and it's just fantastic. So thank you very much, Jim, and congratulations to Montezuma County.
All right.
And having said that,
Uh-oh.
Let me throw one thing in. Erin, she was my hydrologist until the other counties started stealing her. But there's a rock star right there in Tom. And I just met Matt today. Erin's been, I'll get a text at 11:30 at night. We're sitting there trying to figure out the weather. I mean, she just, yeah, the whole time. So really appreciated the weather service. They worked really hard with us, especially when some of those hailstones were coming in and we were texting going, what's it look like up there? It's coming down, yeah. So, yeah, they were great to work with.
So in other words, you text other people at 11 o'clock at night besides me?
Yeah, I do. And they
Okay.
get emails too. Probably less than you guys.
24/7. So, believe it or not, we are a federal government agency, but you do get these signs for free. We kind of suggest that you put them, possibly on the entering Cortez. But having said that, people do steal them. You went to county up in Vernal, they just keep getting them stolen. So you got 2 of these, and I'm going to ask you when we're done, if you could actually come down, we can all take a picture together.
All right.
Because National Weather Service headquarters in DC likes to see that we're reaching out. So again, thank you very much, and Jim, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I have a question for our hydrologist.
Oh dear.
So what do the next 6 months look like?
Well, we have some active monsoon for the next few days, and then it looks like high pressure moving in, so that'll kind of cut it off. In terms of the next winter, it looks like 90% chance of an El Nino, which is an oscillation in the Pacific Ocean. And as that shifts and the temperatures change in the ocean, it tends to have an influence on North American winters. It's the strongest signal. So for southern U.S., that typically, not always, means a wetter winter. Unfortunately, western Colorado doesn't really fall on either the wetter or the drier signal, but southwest Colorado is closer to that wetter than normal swath or pattern. So statistically, it shows a wetter than normal winter.
And that's
We'll
in
see.
snow or just precipitation?
Precipitation,
Just
yeah.
anything then?
Yeah,
Okay.
the temperature would have a big, definite change on that. But I mean, more snow over the mountaintops, and then where that moisture is coming from and how warm it is would depend on the snow levels for the valleys. But again, that's just statistically in favor, so things are not always as you expect, and as we
Yeah.
get closer, that story may change.
Does the jet stream drop below us to the south?
Yeah, so
okay.
that typically pulls in the moisture further south rather
Okay.
than,
Do you want a job?
Huh?
Do you want a job? You
Oh,
come with us?
well, back in the mid-70s, my dad ran a flower shop, and he would talk to Salt Lake City when he was buying wholesale flowers. And whenever he would say, well, how's the weather? And, well, it's snowing like crazy. You could expect the next morning that I was shoveling snow. And there was one year that I did that for 15 days straight.
Oh, man.
And it wasn't this, it was
Yeah.
that. And it all seemed to revolve around the jet stream dropping south of us, because that flow would come down from the northwest.
Right, and brings in all that cold air, so.
Yeah. What?
Very good.
I
Well,
said
thank
you
you,
walked
Mr.
5
Disaster.
miles uphill to school every day too when you were that age.
No, I took the bus. I don't know about you guys, but I rode the bus.
both ways.
All right. We'll come on down.
Yeah, let's take a picture.
Vicky can take a picture. Both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's uphill both ways and 30 below. Don't forget the temperature thing.
In the storm, uphill both ways.
We've got to turn the sign on. That's all there is to it. Turn the sign on. What color do you want? Red. Red? Find a hoopty here. Where's Is it on? Gerald, is that sign on? Yeah. Okay, now we're gonna get red, okay? Are we red? Hang on. All right. Ready to turn on the sign.
We're blocking the sign. My hair lifted.
No, it doesn't. With the beauty parlor.
Okay, there's one.
Well, if you just get a guitar, you'd be all right.
That's it, ZZ Top.
Yeah. Yeah, they covered it very clearly. I held that.
And you guys get to pick which corridors we want these posted. That one, that one, that one, whatever corridor they say.
We got a spot on the wall over there, nobody's stealing.
Save one. Yeah, that's true.
Probably one. Just get a pole and a wheel, and you can move it around.
Yeah, no one will.
That's what we do in the wintertime up on the Doris Norwood Road, we move the county line.
No, we're gonna weld them. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
See y'all. Have a great day. I can tell you from watching the weather, it's been hot in Grand Junction. They're real hot up there.
Yeah.
Holy cow, over 100 degrees every day for,
You hit 170, which was tied the all-time high you've ever received.
Really?
And I think, didn't they say that also July was the hottest July we've ever had since 1990?
it was pretty hot. Pretty hot.
Thank you, guys.
You might want to stick around for a while down here.
It cooled off pretty good last night. It was,
Oh, it was great.
yeah.
Move that place down. All right, we'll talk, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, guys.
We'll weld them to the post, too. Thanks, Commissioner.
You bet. Okay, we're going to jump back up to our unfinished business. We have, first on our, was a discussion as it related to the 2022 audit. We had Chris Majors here yesterday, who gave us our financial audit, basically of the county, had no issues, no problems with anything that's being done or been done, and basically is all we need then is an approval for that.
Okay. Move we accept and approve the audit for 2022.
And I will second that. So it's been moved and seconded to accept the audit for 2022 as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the next, we had a discussion as it related to the purchase of a new printer from the assessor's office. I did read an email that she sent late last night. So we actually do, did she say anything else, Travis? Because I saw that other quote, so we actually have two quotes.
Yeah, the only thing I got was obviously the email, and the first one had I can't remember the exact price and all this paperwork, roughly 17,000. Well, a similar one, as it related to the second quote, was 23,000.
The first one was 15.5, and he's giving us a $2,000 reduction for a trade-in, so it brought the total down to 13.5. The second option, which is a larger machine, which was at 23,165, delivered and installed with a trading credit of 2,000. So it was 21,165. So we basically have 3 different proposals. Is the way I read it, the way
Correct.
the email presented to me. Did you guys see that
Mhm.
differently?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't see her here. I mean, what?
My take was she was willing to go with the first option that she presented yesterday.
So the one out of Kansas?
Yeah.
So what we were presented with yesterday is we did have a, and this is a Plot Wave 3000. It's a 2-roll, which is, prints all of the big maps, and uses the rolls of paper. This was a 2 to 3 week, to get it here, and basically, was around $17,725. Any further discussion, guys, or question that we
No.
didn't ask yesterday? This is just another one of those things, a part of doing business that we kind of have to have, so. It is obviously over her spending limit, and she does need approval for this.
I would so move we approve the purchase of a new Canon Plot Wave 3000 and for the assessor's office in the amount of $17,725.95.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve a printer plotter for the assessor's office in the amount of $17,725.95. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we moved on to a decision today based on our fleet reduction. We've had this conversation in the past several times, and this is basically as it involves sheriff's vehicles. Right now, we have put 16 brand-new ones in service. I think they're all in service now. And so with the reduction of it, we put together some numbers. And Travis, do you have those with you? I think it was to keep 14.
It was a total of 26 authorized.
So how do you guys want to do this? Ian?
So one recommendation I would have is whatever number you guys settle on reducing to, I think that make the decision to reduce it, but I think that a 90-day period of time before that reduction happens is probably reasonable. You guys can certainly go longer than that. I think any less than that would be difficult. And so, obviously this is a change, and we just need to be sure that everybody has notice of it, and so the sheriff's office can plan accordingly.
Okay, so then basically effective 11/1.
Let's just put it to the first of the year and,
I think it's however you want to do it. I think you're just saying a minimum of 90
Yeah.
days for planning.
I would say a minimum of 90 days, but certainly going to the first of the year wouldn't be.
That's when our
would be
budget
an
comes
issue.
into effect and just,
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner?
And that's fine. So total number, we're reducing it?
So would be reducing it by 12, I
12,
think?
I think, is what
12.
12 vehicles. And they're all sheriff vehicles.
yeah.
This portion of it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other question, I mean, we're still in the process of approving budgets, and so, I assume we can make this decision today and then just work the results of that decision into the budget. Is that the plan?
Correct. Okay.
Go ahead, Gerald.
How you want to do it?
So I think what the discussion is that we'll reduce it to 26 vehicles, and the date would be starting January 1st, 2024.
And then I guess the only other question, 26 vehicles, do we know how that's going to be divided between patrol vehicles? And, I mean, I know that there's some other accessory vehicles, right? We're not, are we just talking about patrol vehicles at this point?
No, I think that was total vehicles, and there was an allocation or a thought process of what was potentially needed, but
Correct. So 26 vehicles total is what we would leave. And there were some between detention, deputies, detective. So there are different divisions that were split.
yeah, and I think we got some information when Shane
From
would come
Shane.
over. And
Yeah.
So do you guys want to lay that out in the motion, exactly how the allocation is, or is that not
Do you have
necessary?
that piece of paper? I'm not sure that it's necessary. I think it's just
we
a
need to
total,
do that.
I think it's just a
Okay.
total number right now. So we're reducing by 12 vehicles at this point in time. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, what about their transport vehicles and stuff? Is this in this, out?
Yes.
It's in this 26?
So it was all, yeah, all inclusive. I can grab that paper if you want to see it. I think, don't
You
we
just
have it
put it
from
up.
Shane?
Well, that was, what was up was the request for admin to reach out to other counties.
Oh, okay.
My only concern is just that there not be any confusion in terms of what we're doing. I mean, I know we're reducing it to 26, but what is that going to mean for what exactly is on the ground? And I mean, ultimately, you guys have the authority to control what's going to be on the ground. But, you know, at the same time, in terms of providing that notice that we talked about, I mean, I think that the sheriff's office needs to be really clear as to what they're going to have on the ground
So
in terms of the
basically,
different vehicles.
To be clear, was our conversation at the last time was, every deputy gets a take-home vehicle, which was what Shane presented to us. At some point in time, we have to start reducing these. They sit at home, so we looked at the whole pool, and I think Travis is coming with the numbers. So basically, they're gonna sit at the sheriff's office. When you come on shift, you're going to grab that vehicle, you're going to then share it. It's gonna be almost like our pool vehicles.
And I'm absolutely not questioning what it is. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on exactly what's going to be used for what and what will be available.
Basically, what we kind of put the allocation with Shane was 3 for the command staff, 4 for the detective division, 4 for the detention division, and 14 for the patrol. Now, these are all new vehicles, and that would leave them 2 also in reserves, because obviously there's reserves that have to be had. So then they are going to pool, these vehicles are gonna have to be shared. Does that make sense?
Could you read that off one more time? 3 for the command staff?
So the command staff is 3, the detective staff to 4, the detention to 4, and the patrol to 14.
So that's 25.
I'm missing one. What's this one? So there's 1 for the civil also.
And so here we're just talking about the sheriff's vehicles, the trucks. We're not
Correct.
talking about any of the.
Well, they're not all pickups. They're a combination of SUVs. Basically getting rid of all of the older stuff and keeping all of the newer stuff in the fleet.
Okay.
And then Shane has that broken down of what needs to go as we got all of these new vehicles in. Is that pretty clear, Ian?
Yeah, I think I understand. I mean, I think that what would be smart is after today's meeting, I'll get with Mr. Anderson and work on drafting a letter that we can provide to the sheriff's office outlining exactly what it will look like.
And it will be to the first of the year, so you have more than 90 days. Okay. Unless you guys have any other questions on this?
No, I don't.
Question?
How many patrol detectives does he have, or actual patrol people does he have on at any one time, do you know?
I don't know.
I could throw a guess out, maybe 3, 4.
4 or 5?
I don't know.
When I came up this morning, there was 3 in a parking lot. So I don't know whether they met together or what's going on.
Have these numbers been presented to the sheriff? The 26?
No. Mm-mm. Not that I'm aware of.
So legally, it's pretty straightforward. You guys have to provide the sheriff's office with what's necessary for them to do their jobs.
Mhm.
You know, whether it makes sense to run these numbers by the sheriff and get his take, I don't know. And that's not legally necessary.
Well, that's kind of what we did when we looked at the staff, which we can do that. So in your command staff, there are 4. We only reduced it by 1. In your detention, or detective, I'm sorry, it was 7, we reduced it to 4. So that there's enough overlap and basically a reserve. In the detention, it's 2-4. In the the patrol, it went to 14. And if you count, there's 21. So we reduced it to 14.
And this has been compared with counties of similar size, correct, Travis? And this is in line with what other counties are doing?
So this is definitely not scientific, but it was requested to reach out to other counties, which we did through admin. I reached out to, myself and finance reached out to big counties, small counties, medium-sized counties, counties in comparison to ours. And, for instance, Jefferson County has 300 vehicles to do the job. They needed 115. Park County didn't respond to the question. BOCC County needed 10. Chaffee County needed 25. San Miguel needed 28. Gunnison County 25, Eagle County 20, and then Logan County 20.
And these are the same type of vehicles we're talking about here that we're providing to the sheriff, the patrol type vehicles. That's what,
Total vehicles,
that's the
yeah.
vehicles that they gave us, this 20, 25, 28.
Total, from the data that.
Okay.
Total. So some of these are transport vehicles. For detention, they're transport vehicles. They're not necessarily, they're not upfitted, they're not patrol vehicles.
But we're still looking at the same
The
grouping
entire
of
fleet,
vehicles.
yes.
Well, you know, certainly, you guys are absolutely entitled to move this forward today and make this reduction. You know, your other option obviously would be to just reach out to the sheriff, run it by him, get his thoughts. You don't have to do that. It's really the board's discretion at this point. What this board needs to do legally is provide the sheriff with what he needs to do his job. And if that's done, then it's good.
Okay. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
What do you think, Gerald?
Well, I'm just wondering if we shouldn't run this, I mean, to me, if we sit here and make a deal that we're gonna do 3 to this and 4 to that, that may not fit his. I'm not against reducing the fleet, not, but I don't know that I wanna say that they're,
We just put the total number there.
yeah.
We don't have to,
Yeah, we don't have
that's
to
how we came
designate
up with the
just
total
what.
number. We're not
Yeah.
designating it.
Yeah.
We just came up with
Well,
the total
I
number.
just didn't want to be doing that. But I guess,
It's just a matter of, how are we gonna continue to pay for a fleet this size? And how are we gonna continue to have vehicles sitting outside of somebody's house for 4 days, or 3 days, I'm sorry, out of the week, where it could be being utilized? There are two ways, I mean, we don't have to make this decision today. We can put it next week. We can try and reach out to the sheriff. He obviously has said, these are benefits I want to give. That's what he wants to give. However, we can't afford to continue to pay for these benefits. That was a statement that he made in our first budget hearing.
And you have to look at it are the taxpayers willing to give this benefit of a take-home vehicle to almost every person that's working out there? You
Well,
know,
it's a
especially to his
matter of
officers.
affordability, is how do we
Right.
continue to
And how do
afford it?
we can't afford that. Especially with, and I'm sorry to say, and be specific, but 3 of them are leaving the county to go home at night. And how do we justify that to our taxpayers? Because we're the ones that are gonna get the calls, not the sheriff's office.
Do you want to take another week and reach out to him?
I can, if you want me to.
Oh, we can do it.
Yeah.
It's not a matter, it's just, I'm just telling you what he said in the first budget hearing meeting. Because those are benefits I want to give. Nobody else in the county gets that benefit. One more week?
I suggest we table this for 1 week.
Okay.
Bring it back.
Travis will table this for a week. We'll reach out to the sheriff and,
Are you,
we'll go from there.
who's gonna reach out to him? You and
Travis
Travis?
and I, the budget committee.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along then. We also had a discussion yesterday as it was related to the broadband ITN network presentation. Rick Smith was here, did the presentation in the absence of our IT director. It was recommended yesterday that we go with the Clear Networks MOU, or I'm sorry, not MOU, but proposal. And that company was out of Montrose.
Yes.
So was there anything else on that one that you guys wanted to talk about? Ian, did you have any?
You know, the only comment that I would make about this is, you know, I'm certainly not a fiber expert. I don't understand how these systems work. You know, I inquired of Mr. Smith yesterday to make sure that this proposal and this system that's being proposed will fit with what's already in the ground, and it sounds like it will. What I would say is these are really complicated systems. You know, it looks like a good proposal to me, but I'm also absolutely not educated in this area, and
Well,
so.
again, my comment yesterday was how does this work with the satellites that are being deployed right now? And obviously, after the presentation, the satellites are not for funding with this type of a request.
These are just such big projects and such big issues. And I mean, when you talk about bringing fiber infrastructure to a county, I mean, you're talking about a huge project. And
So this is.
I just want to be sure that everything works together. And that's my concern.
So, and our IT director wasn't here, so this was kind of a stand-in. I get that. But when is he coming back?
He'll be back next week, but I think this has to be,
Yeah, this is
I
time
think it was
sensitive.
time sensitive. Was
It is time sensitive. These are tricky things because honestly, like nobody sitting here is an expert in fiber infrastructure. And my only concern is, I mean, we're gonna get systems in the ground and systems on poles and does it all fit together? And I don't know whether that question's been answered or not. Just in looking through this thing, that was what jumped out to me. It's not necessarily a legal issue, it's just a practical issue of are we jumping in too fast? And I understand this money's available. I don't know the answer.
Fiber is fiber. You know, interconnectivity's usually not a problem most of the times. And all we're looking at is, we're trying to get ISPs, internet service providers in here to deliver to the homes, because we sure can't do that.
Yep.
It's basically building the middle mile
Right.
along with the last mile is what it,
You know, it's like
What the
building
funding is for.
county roads that come off of state highways.
yes.
And I certainly understand that. I
The
just,
next one's a driveway.
I just don't quite understand the relationship between this middle mile build out and what I understood was a middle mile build out with the system that goes from 2210 down to the south of town.
I
And
think
maybe
it's
they,
just, it's larger from what they had drawn on those maps yesterday. It's a larger region.
Yeah.
Ours is a very short middle mile section. Still middle mile, but a very short section. This is just a lot
Yeah.
bigger.
and as long as it hooks in and it hooks in with the, as long as it hooks in with what we have in the ground and the agreement that we have in place for, 2210 to lease that fiber for the next 25 years, we should be fine. I'm not an expert. That's what I'm just disclaiming. Just things that occurred to me as I was looking through this.
Even if you go satellite, they still have to have service providers that lease
Somewhere.
parts of those satellites to deliver product to you. Whether it be movies or gaming or whatever.
Any other issues, Gerald, that you see, or?
I'm like Ian, I don't know enough about it to.
Nor do I.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, I would so move we accept the proposal from Clear Networks as presented.
Since I wasn't in here yesterday,
Oh, you were not?
I wasn't involved with all this
Sorry.
whole deal yesterday.
Okay, then I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded to accept the proposal from Clear Networks as presented in our workshop yesterday. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we have a decision as it's related to the forfeiture fund, a resolution. I don't know if you got.
I didn't get
chance
to the
read this
resolution
done.
yesterday. I'll get it to us next week and it'll get on the
We can move this
agenda.
to next week also, but basically what that was a discussion. The way the statute reads is we have to have a DA representative, law enforcement, and a commissioner representative to be on this
Really, what the forfeiture
For-
committee is for is it's to approve any expenditures of money that was seized by the sheriff's office. And so what we discussed yesterday was that can be done in a couple different ways. You can create a forfeiture committee comprised of representatives from the local sheriff's office and then also the municipalities. That's been done in some places. Or we can limit it to just our sheriff's office. And if we do that, it would be just the sheriff or his representative, a commissioner, like you said, and the district attorney or his representative. And it sounds like that's the direction we want to go. I will draw up that resolution and have it in front of the board next week.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then we had an MOU that was presented to us for the Montezuma Leadership Network. This one was pretty straightforward. It has to do with the funding that she's received, the $62,000 for the Housing Finance Authority. Like a 2-page document. Anything else on this one? I guess I'm looking at you because Cheryl wasn't here.
I would so move we sign the MOU between Montezuma County and Montezuma Leadership Network.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to sign the MOU with Montezuma Leadership Network and Montezuma County. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and then lastly, we also had the sheriff coming in here asking if he could increase one of his credit cards to $10,000. In our procurement policy, it's specific that the department heads, elected officials have $5,000 limit. County administrator has 10 and the BOCC chair has 15. The issue I have with everything on the credit cards is, as we've been dealing with more of this finance all the time, every time we look at something, it's because of tracking and transparency. So you pull up a statement and it just says Visa. It doesn't say anything of where that money went, what it was spent on. And I understand their concerns, but I still think that everything that we do can be invoiced. If it's an emergency or an urgency, then there is also the county administrator that can be reached out to. If he can't deal with it, then he can also reach out to the chair. So you guys heard well, I guess I keep looking to my right. You were not here. Did you hear this presentation either, sir? So.
Gerald, do you have any thoughts?
How often does he need that much?
We
I
actually
guess
looked at
that's-
that, and it was.
So
Go
this
ahead,
morning,
Travis.
we pulled financials, credit card financials. Very rarely do they go over to the 5,000, and there's 15 credit cards when we got with finance. If we keep increasing this, it's creating headaches for them for tracking purposes, because they get a Visa, then they have to go find where the invoice is, and we have vendors set up. If we keep, and we looked at it this morning, if we keep using credit cards, we get paid, or we get charged a sales tax. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that we're paying in sales tax by the use of credit cards. So, and we have vendors set up for a lot of this stuff. Now, if it's an emergency, you know, like we was talking this morning, there's myself and the commissioner chair that can authorize an emergency expenditure above that, but it's just, it would be a tracking nightmare for our finance office.
And the other thing for me, the transparency of it, because like I said, when we go back in to start looking at these and we look at the description that's put in Cassell, it just shows Visa and a payment, and then there's no description or anything underneath that, which, I mean, the tracking and transparency is the big issue that I have with it. And again, when you have that many cards over there, they have limits mostly of $2,500, and I think the sheriff has 5, correct?
Correct.
as an elected official. So they have other cards. As we said yesterday, they're not on an island. If there's an issue, they can get to all of us. So,
Then
really up to you guys.
I guess the bigger picture also is now, after watching the video yesterday, now everybody else is wanting to increase their limits, so, or others are.
If we're gonna do that, we would have to change.
So other department heads reached out to you to increase limits since yesterday?
Basically, to change the policy. I guess I'm just looking to the right. 'cause
Okay.
we left.
Do we need a motion to deny this? If we do?
No, I don't think we need any motion. I mean, I think historically that credit card, as I understood it, was at $10,000, so it was outside the policy, and then
And then as-
and then it got reduced back to 5 to conform with the policy. So I think at this point the policy is $5,000. If you want to, if you want that credit card to be $10,000 as it was historically, then you would need a motion to amend this policy to allow for the sheriff's office administration card to have a limit of $10,000.
Yeah.
And if not, then it just leaves the policy alone.
I would
I mean,
say
we
just,
had
this policy's brand
so
new.
many discussions for this policy, and this was never brought up one time. Not one time. We were all in those meetings. This was never brought up once. So why all of a sudden is it an urgency or an emergency? I don't understand that.
I don't either. I would say we just leave it the same.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, I don't.
Let's
I
see if it
think
becomes a problem.
Okay.
But if we raise it for one, we're gonna have to raise it across the
Well,
board.
then we're changing the policy.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Gerald.
No, I have any problem with just leaving it alone. I mean, I don't, there's a solution they can
There is a
follow.
solution.
So I don't see where the,
And again, like I said, these numbers were in this policy at every meeting that we had. We send it back out for another X amount of days to make sure everybody was good with it. And we didn't have any responses, so why now all of a sudden is it an urgency? So, okay, well then I guess we'll leave the policy as it stands. And with that, James Dietrich, did he have a report? That's okay, we'll go to Ian.
So a couple things since our last meeting. First of all, in our Ellis Lewis case, I did file a reply to the response that we got on the motion for summary judgment that I filed. That has been accepted by the court, and so that motion is awaiting a ruling on the motion for summary judgment as to the constitutional takings claim that Mr. Lewis raised. In addition to that, had some communications with counsel for Mr. Lewis. There were 3 claims raised in that complaint that was filed. One was the constitutional takings claim, and then there was a claim regarding a variance dispute and a septic permit dispute that really wasn't at issue. The county has had granted septic permits to Mr. Lewis. The variance was approved for Mr. Lewis, and so there really wasn't anything at issue with those 2 claims, and so did file a joint motion to dismiss those 2 claims, and those 2 claims are now resolved and dismissed. Basically with the court order saying there was no issue because the permits had already been granted. So at this point, the only claim at issue in that civil case is just that constitutional takings claim, and we'll wait on an order for summary judgment. That will be forthcoming when the court issues it. The other thing, Ironwood, We did receive additional money from Ironwood. Ironwood has now paid $20,000 total in fines for the months of June and July. The county has received $10,000 of that. We have a hearing this afternoon at 1:30 to determine whether additional fines will be imposed. There is an agreement between the parties that Ironwood will pay $5,000 per week that they remain out of compliance and material remains on the ground. That fine will stretch throughout August and then the first 2 months of September, assuming that the court approves it. And then we'll get back in for another hearing on September 16th or around that time for a status update and to see whether additional fines will be imposed. So we're moving forward with that. Material continues to be moved off the site, but in speaking with CDPHE, Commissioner Candelaria and I met with representatives from CDPHE yesterday. The pace is still very slow, and at the current rate that things are going, it's simply not going to be tenable to get that material removed within any sort of reasonable time. Temperatures in the pile are slowly rising, and that's certainly concerning both to the county and to CDPHE. And so hopefully this increased fine will incentivize more movement in terms of getting that pile done. And so again, that hasn't been finalized yet. There is a hearing this afternoon that I will attend, and I will provide you guys with an update after that hearing. At this point, other than that, I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. All right, James.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
The first thing I wanted to bring to the Commissioner's attention is regarding the Salter timber litigation that has been filed against the U.S. Forest Service. We've met several times with the Dolores Watershed and Resilient Forest, the Dwarf Working Group, as well as the Coordination Council for the CFLRP. What we've decided is that we would try to send a letter to both parties to try to encourage them to come back to the table to work through any of the objections that they've got, with the hopes of trying to keep this out of the court system and to try to keep on target as far as getting our timber cut up there approved and in action. The initial contact that we've had with both parties sounds fairly positive, that there's a possibility that they may come to the table to try to work through some of the remaining objections. But of course, nothing's a guarantee on that. So in my opinion, it's a little bit of a Hail Mary, but I think it's certainly worth sending that letter out. And so that letter has been drafted. It hasn't gone out yet, but I'm anticipating it going out sometime next week. So we'll just see where that goes. I think on the other side of that front, I'm going to set up a meeting with Jim Spratland and our GIS team. One thing that we would like to do is really kind of pinpoint areas where we think CFLRP monies could be used for project work here in Montezuma County. Because that's one of the concerns, is that with this impending litigation, that everything kind of grinds to a halt. And then that CFLRP money would then be at risk. So what we want to do is come up with areas where we think that money could still be used and still be used to good benefit for the county. The one caveat on that is the CFLRP money cannot be used on private property. So we're looking at cross-boundary on that, but trying to find areas where we think that there's no controversy, places where they may have projects already set up and that are already NEPA ready. Those would be kind of priorities. But really, we've got plenty of places in Montezuma County where we could do some mitigation work. On all the watersheds, we can certainly use some mitigation work up there on that too. So we'll just kind of keep pressing to see if we can't get this litigation stopped and hopefully keep our project moving forward. On another front, the OREC study is continuing to do the intercept surveys. We've got over 200 respondents so far. The areas where we've surveyed is up at Boggy Draw, the McPhee boat launch, and also the McPhee campground. We've collected information from the transfer campground and some of the trails up there in the West La Platas. And then over the coming weeks, we'll be refocusing some of the lower areas, and we'll be visiting the N.M.P.M Visitor Center, Painted Hand, Lowry Ruin, and trying to get a handle on what's happening out there in N.M.P.M. We've also had some intercept surveys done there at Phil's World. Phil's World actually has quite a bit of good trail count data there, so we'll integrate that trail count data in with the surveys also. And the surveys are asking pretty basic questions, location, number of people in the group, what's your participation in the activities, whether or not you're a resident, how long you've lived here, to what degree do you think recreation affects your decision to move to Montezuma County. So pretty basic questions, and so far everybody has been really willing to work with us on answering these questions. And we always go out there and clearly tell people that this is not a BLM or a U.S. Forest Service survey. This is something that Montezuma County is trying to get some understanding of. And again, it's not a scientific survey. This is really just to kind of get kind of a broad brush picture of what's happening out there on the ground. So anyway, we anticipate continuing to work with that, and our consultant has done a really good job of being able to work with volunteers on this. So he's made the outreach to trail groups within the county, and we've had Montezuma County citizens that have been willing to go out there and participate in getting these surveys done. Another subject, the BLM Gunnison Sage Grouse. The draft alternatives comments were submitted last Thursday. And so it'll be a little while yet before all this comes up for public comment, but because we were part of the MOU, a cooperating agency, we were able to provide our comments ahead of time on that. And I've been coordinating with Dolores County on that. Steve Garcher and I have had conversations about what kind of comments to put in. So anyway, we did our best to provide some good feedback on everything so far, and then once that final draft is released to the public, we'll have another chance to make some more comments on it. Another thing with Dolores County, and I think I mentioned this probably the last time I visited with you, but Bonnie has done a great job with the weed control down there at Cabin and Ferris campgrounds on the Lower Dolores. But I think that Dolores County is getting a little uncomfortable with trying to continue the arrangement that we've got. They feel like their resources are being stretched pretty thin, and are not really feeling like they're able to keep the commitments to keeping those campgrounds open. So I'm just bringing that up because the commissioners may want to have a conversation with Dolores County at some point. We just need to figure out what we want to do with those campgrounds down there. If we want to continue to try to keep them open, my guess is we're going to probably have to take over a lot of that maintenance responsibility. But again, we just need to have some conversations about that.
So the Forest Service, when they pulled out of that, they basically gave it, or I guess gave it to Dolores County and us, right?
Well, they didn't really give us anything, but what we agreed to do is to take on some of the maintenance responsibilities to keep those campgrounds open.
To keep them open. Otherwise, they're going to close them, DC them, and be done.
That's correct. And I'll add one more thing to that. They're not campgrounds. They're only day use areas at this point. So, why they've closed it to camping, I don't know. A self-contained unit should be able to camp down there just fine. So anyway, why the Forest Service really wants to close these, I mean, they allege that it's all funding and lack of use, and that may all be true. But on the other hand, there's a lot of infrastructure put in down there that's unutilized, and it's probably eventually just going to go away. There are actually 3 campgrounds down there, and one of them has been completely decommissioned. They took the sign out and everything. So anyway, for the future, it seems like keeping those things at least in mothball would be, probably appropriate. You never know when the use is going to tick up enough, like it did 2 years ago, and we could really use those campgrounds at that point too. So
what is the cost of keeping them open then? If they feel that their resources are being stretched too thin, what is that cost?
Yeah, I
because that's
couldn't
going
give
to
you
eventually
a
come back
direct
to us.
answer on that.
Do we keep it open or do we not?
Right.
And really, is that really what our county dollars are supposed to be doing, is keeping campgrounds? Well,
right.
I don't know if I'd call it a campground, day use grounds open?
I don't know, it doesn't seem like it would cost that much to go open the gate, but, there are some other things down there. There's definitely some weed control that can happen, and, obviously if you got infrastructure, you need to do some painting and probably some trimming, mowing, and things like that. But, what the actual cost of that is, we know
Can you
what it
find
cost
out-
us,
can
and
you
we know
find
what
out
it cost Dolores County.
What they mean by their resources, or
Sure.
or do we need to go out there and visit with them about this, guys? What do you think?
Doesn't hurt to go visit them.
Maybe we should go visit them. Travis, James, maybe you guys can set up a meeting and we'll go meet with them.
A meeting with Dolores County?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to talk about this campground and or
Absolutely.
day use
Yeah.
facility.
I think Dolores County would really appreciate that. They've asked for the same thing. So, yes, we can certainly set that up.
So set that up for Monday and we'll go
Okay,
have a conversation.
absolutely. Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
And then moving on, we've got some, I think the commissioners we're aware that FEMA is doing some new floodplain mapping. They're updating everything. Had a conversation with a local engineer that's been requested to do some work in the town of Dolores, and he's pointing out some pretty significant discrepancies with the elevations in the town of Dolores. That's not within our jurisdiction, and so it's not something we've really paid any close attention to. But once he pointed that out, it becomes pretty apparent. So I called up FEMA and told them that it was one of the areas that they needed to really kind of focus on to make sure they had their information correct on that. They've also come up with a whole new elevation certificate, and we're supposed to be using that as of July 1st. So I've had one floodplain permit that's come in since then, and so they will be directed to use the new elevation certificate. And then next week on Wednesday, they're doing a floodplain workshop up in Grand Junction, which I will go attend that. And they'll go over the new certificate, and we'll have an opportunity to talk about the floodplain mapping project that they've got going. And so I've got a list of things within the county, and we've already provided that to them. The Dolores issue is a new one, so we'll make sure that they're aware of that. And Mancos may be in the same shape, but nobody's really taken a close look within the town limits there. It's outside of our jurisdiction. So, but it is something that we'll point out to FEMA to make sure that they take a hard look at that. Within the town of Dolores, it was over a 4-foot discrepancy. So, and that's quite a lot.
Wow.
So, we will make sure we're all on the same page with that as best we can.
That's a huge amount.
Yeah, that's a huge amount.
4-foot vertical discrepancy?
4-foot vertical discrepancy, yeah.
That's
Which
a lot
seems,
of
well, the river would essentially have a waterfall in there somewhere
Yeah.
at that point, and which is obviously not the case. So something's wrong there, and of course we're not doing the mapping, so all we can do is point out things that look funny to us, and try to get them to help correct that. So.
Okay.
Then the last thing I have is the Paso Mesa Verde project. Segment B is working through the environmental and cultural resources concerns, and I think I've told the commissioners about that. That came up during the 70% review. We think that we've got a good pathway forward for at least 2 of the problems there. The third problem we're still working on, and I think we'll probably come to a resolution on that. I've got some ideas on that, and I think I've shared that with the commissioners. Apparently there's some pushback on those ideas, but we'll kind of work through all those and make sure we get that figured out. We were not successful in our TAP application to help offset the cost of reworking the intersection US 160B on segment C and D on the Mancos side. So we'll continue to try to look for opportunities for another grant for that. But we are closing in on the 70% review for that side. That's scheduled for August 16th. And anyways, Central Federal Lands will be here, and we'll go through the whole review process and probably go out there and take a look at everything on the ground again, just to make sure we've got everything covered. And then for segment A, our right-of-way investigations have been going really well, all the way from the fairgrounds to Denny Lake. And so we've got to negotiate with the city still, and then there's one property owner on the west side of Denny Lake that's kind of down behind the Baymont, and we think that parcel would be pretty critical also, although there are some ways around that parcel too. So You know, I think things are going pretty well with the right-of-way, you know, all things considered, and we've narrowed it down. It's not as many landowners, first of all, and the landowners that we do have to work with have been very positive. So, and it's a matter of just kind of talking with them about where would you like a trail if you're open to it, you know, whether it be on the north side of the property, south side, right through the middle, you know, things like that. And I think we've got, everybody's kind of come to the conclusion that going with a more northern route on that would be better. Fits everybody's, you know, kind of thoughts about their land a little better. So, and I think the other thing is it does connect into the business district here in Cortez, you know, more directly that way too. So, anyway, as that kind of continues to unfold, I'll keep the commissioners appraised of everything that happens there. We're down to 1 or 2 property owners that have not been responsive yet. So, doesn't mean that they're, you know, against it or anything like that. They simply just haven't responded yet. We'll send them certified letters.
Okay.
So I guess that kind of concludes my report, unless there's anything else from the commissioners.
Thanks, James.
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, very good.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
Not a whole lot to report other than I was really busy trying to get through all the budget hearing or budget presentations. Got with Mr. Spratlin. It sounds like we're going to be working with the Civil Air Patrol between Emergency Management and the Sheriff's Office, working on getting some quotes for the commissioners as it relates to the sheds. We had a good conversation. We was able to go to Mancos, good conversation with them, trying to do some partnerships on some different projects, and I'll let you gentlemen speak more to that if you want to. And our ClearGov is getting close. It's been arduous, to say the least. So a lot of time spent on that, trying to get it up and running. So, and we're close to the fairground solar. Getting close. Wrote a letter for an extension, so hopefully once the money comes in from DOLA, we can
Get going.
start rolling with that.
All right, very good. To my left, Commissioner Copenhaver.
This past week, we just made some phone calls, participated with some interviews last week. Yesterday, I missed the workshop. We had our first meeting of the Colorado Task Force on the Colorado River. That's starting up. That'll be meeting every couple weeks through the fall to the end of the year. Hopefully, we can work out some decision as far as how Colorado should proceed as far as the guidelines and the future is with the Colorado River, and what the state needs to stand together and make sure that we have one voice as to our participation in the Colorado River and the Lower Basin project. So it's going to take up quite a bit of my time for the next couple of months, or 3 or 4 months. So
End of the year.
yeah, to the end of the year, we're supposed to have something by the end of the year. So that's about it for me.
Okay. Commissioner Lindsay.
Yes, busy week. Few phone calls, emails. Travis and I did attend the dispatch meeting, and good news is that our rate for next year is going down approximately almost $18,000. And their proposed budget is out, and I've got a copy of it here if anybody wants to look at it. Also did attend a work session over in Mancos. Like Travis said, it was a good session. I attended the Region 9 meeting up in Silverton, and the proposed budget is for dues for Region 9 is $22,523, which is down a little bit. So we're coming down in a few categories. It was a pretty long meeting, but it was a nice drive up there. And so if anybody wants to read the Region 9 meeting, here it is.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you covering that for me, because
That's all
that was I was spread way too thin.
And then at the city council meeting, their consent agenda course, they approved some liquor license renewals, some marijuana license renewals. They also give some conditional use permit for approved a resolution to start for permitting for the quick and clean car wash. And they rezoned some property out on 491, which is in the city limits, and approved a conditional use permit for the same address, or started the permit process for approving it. And it was pretty, there wasn't much going on with the city. The city manager did give in his report, just said that the commissioners in the county, along with the hospital district and the SHS board, said it was really good meeting, very informational, and we handled it very well. And last but definitely not least, spent quite a bit of the weekend at the county fair. A few glitches out there, but it was a good fair, had a good time. And congratulations to the fair board and all the kids, all the sponsors and the donors and the buyers. It proved to be a good weekend. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, again, we continue to get phone calls, emails on all kinds of different things specifically related to land use. I did attend the Dolores meeting Monday the 24th. Sounds like they did pick a new city manager. They were going to make, the attorney was going to make their offer to them to see if they get them on board. If they get them on board, there's hopefully we'll be starting by the middle of this month. Wednesday, again, we all attended the workshop over in Mancos. A great conversation and dialogue with the trustees over there, and hopefully those continue. Thank you again, Commissioner Lindsay, for attending that Region 9 workshop for me in Silverton. So now my week changes from there to flying to Denver for the STAC meetings the rest of this week. We did do interviews Friday morning, and that for the Director of Senior Services. Those decisions were made after that meeting, and those will be presented soon. Spent a lot of time with Travis Phaedra in Finance, finishing up all of our budget hearing committee meetings. I think as of yesterday, we're about 98% completed. Everything will be getting put into ClearGov, and we'll be ready by the middle of August. So with that, that's all that I have, gentlemen. We'll be back here at 1:30 as the Board of Equalization. So at this point in time,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
been moved and seconded to adjourn the August 1st, 2023 meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.